Welcome to the Gen 20 podcast. I'm Nicole.
And I'm Marina.
And today we're joined by Tori for her first 100K, and we're talking about saving, side hustles, and everything in between. You might have seen her on Good Morning America, the New York Times, or CNBC for starters. Welcome, Tori.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm stoked to be here.
We're so happy that you're joining us today. So I've had the pleasure of knowing you since 2017, back when you blogged under Victory Media, and your blog looked a little different then. But
A
in the
little
past
bit.
yeah, and just, different topics maybe. But in the past few years, your blog has really grown astronomically, basically, and you've helped tens of thousands, probably approaching another 100K there, of women to improve their finances and their relationship with money over the years. Yeah, everyone have a little dance party. So, can you tell us a little bit more about the mission behind Her First 100K, what motivated you to start it, and where did your journey with money begin?
Yeah, I met you in a coffee shop a long time ago because I admired your work and asked you out for coffee and was like, "Hey, can I pick your brain?" And Nicole was kind enough to meet me. So, yeah, a long time ago. Lots changed since then. I was lucky enough
Mhm.
to have a really great financial education growing up. So I had parents who were really committed to educating me about money, to showing me how to be financially responsible. And I grew up thinking that that was the case for everybody. And of course, didn't realize that that was a privilege. And I graduated college again, thinking everybody knows how to not overspend on credit cards. Everybody knows to pay off debt and to invest and negotiate, and realize very quickly that I was the friend all of my friends were coming to for advice and guidance, and that with that privilege came a responsibility to start having these conversations. So I graduated college in 2016 and kind of came into adulthood in Trump's America and realized that we're at a severe disadvantage when it comes to financial guidance as women, but really any marginalized group, women, people of color, the LGBTQ community, disabled people. Uh, I think that we don't have any sort of any sort of equality until we have financial equality. And so my work has been around how do we get actionable resources into more women's hands.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. I remember back when you were thinking about starting Her First 100K, and it wasn't in the beginning of like her first 100K,
No,
yeah,
it was
because I
your
know.
first 100K, and then
Mhm.
somebody had the domain, and then I had like a month of panic attacks because I knew that was my name. I tried, URFIRST100K. I tried like, one ST 100K. Like I tried everything and none of it was working. And I was literally on vacation with a friend in New Orleans in a bar, and he turned to me and he's like, "I know you probably thought about this, but what about her first 100K?" And I honestly hadn't. And I bought the domain right there in that bar right after he mentioned it. So yeah, it was supposed to be your first 100K. Somebody else in Spain sent me into a crisis for a month. And then, yeah, we kind of pivoted from Victory Media, from more of a blog focused platform, to speaking and coaching and kind of more of a media platform in her first 100K.
So, yeah, I remember when you came back from that trip and we had coffee again, and I remember you were kind of going through like a little bit of a identity crisis there, and then I saw the very, very start of the whole like focus on financial feminism with the change to her first 100K. So, I know you talk a lot about like equality when it comes to money and things like that. So, how exactly are women impacted disproportionately financially?
I mean, that's a whole other podcast. We could talk for hours about all of the various reasons, but I mean, one of the best examples is the wage gap, which is a lot of conversation, rightfully so. 78 cents to a man's dollar, and that's if you're a white woman. If you're a woman of color, it's even worse. The things we're not talking about enough, though, in my opinion, is the investing gap. So, we take 78 cents, sometimes less to a man's dollar, and then we either wait to invest that money or don't invest at all compared to men. So we're taking less money, it's growing at a slower rate, and then women on average live 7 years longer than men. So less money that's growing at a slower rate, and then we're expected to live longer on that money. So just that is proof that we need to be having more conversations and more education around how to invest, your investing options, negotiating your pay, understanding that, yeah, if you're going to make less money and it's going to grow at a slower rate, how does it make sense that you're expected to live longer on that money? So that's one example. I mean, everything, I think money is the great equalizer, right? It affects absolutely everybody on this earth, and I think that your opportunities, your the way, your lifestyle, your choices are limited if you don't have access to money. You can't leave a toxic situation you don't want to be in anymore, whether that's a relationship or a job. You can't start a business. You can't maybe have a child or buy a house or go to college, right? If you don't have access to either a financial education or to money in general. And so I think, yeah, at the end of the day, it comes down to stereotypically parents and society, they have these conversations with men and they make sure that it's not taboo among men to talk about money, but we're told as women that it's gauche or that it's impolite or that it's improper. And really what that's doing is the patriarchy is profiting off of us not having these conversations about money, because the more we don't talk about it, the more they stay in power. So yeah, that's kind of a little bit of a rant, and I'll get off my soapbox. But really, it comes down to, at the end of the day, we're all affected by money in different ways,
Mhm.
no matter what your background looks like. And if you're a woman or a member of another marginalized group, you're at a severe, unfortunate disadvantage when it comes to making money, keeping money, and growing money.
Yeah, so talking more about that, like, what I know you have a ton of courses and resources out, but what do you think that people should start doing now? Like, what are some steps that we could take today after even listening to this episode to start having a better relationship with money?
Yeah, I have literally a start page that I'll send you both that you can put in the show notes. But
Mhm.
one thing that you can do that's super actionable is automate your savings. And I know, Nicole, you do this where you just take a percentage of your paycheck every month and have it automatically deposit into a savings account, preferably a high yield savings account. So, what you're
Mhm.
doing is you're setting up, okay, I want this amount of money or this percentage of money taken out before you actually pay for any of your expenses. This is what we call paying yourself first, right? So if you're putting,
Mhm.
let's say, 10% towards your savings before you've even paid your rent, you just did the hardest part about money and you did it first. You don't have to worry about it. And so it doesn't have to be a ton of money. It can be maybe a couple percentage points if you're just getting started. Maybe it's $25 every pay period, but start small and have that automatic transfer set up so you don't even have to think about it. Um,
Mhm.
the second thing I recommend is I already mentioned kind of a high yield savings account, but that's one of the easiest switches you can make. The average bank account in the United States is earning you 0.01% in interest, which is like pennies. It's absolutely nothing. And so a high yield savings account, at least at the time we're recording this, is anything over 1%. So if you go from 0.01% to 1.0%, that's something that's an immediate change where you can be earning more money without you having to do anything extra. So that's a really great tool that you can use as well.
Yeah, and I think the sooner that you get into the habit of automating your savings, the smarter it is for the long term. And
Totally.
even, yeah, because I mean, for me, like, I mean, I worked all through college and put myself through college. And I wish that I had started that habit then because I mean, I would have graduated college with like a pretty decent like nest of money, And I mean, I do that now. Like, I save majority of my income now, around 60% of my income.
Right.
And it's just automating it. Really, I feel like that's a huge step that most people overlook.
Well, and if
Um,
money is something that you're already uncomfortable with, like make it easier on yourself. Like you don't have to suffer through the concept of like, transferring money to your savings account on your own. And like there's steps you can take to make it easier, because the last thing we want, right, is for you to be already in a tumultuous relationship with money and not have that grow and get better, and to have it feel like a chore every single time. And
mhm.
saving money, I like to tell people that when you're saving money, you will spend it eventually. Like you will.
Yeah,
You'll
you're
spend it on
saving
a
it to be spent.
right, you're spending it maybe
Mhm,
on a vacation, or you're spending it on a house, or maybe that is on your kick-ass retirement when you're 65 on a beach in Florida with a hot Pilates instructor, which is what my plan is. So, I think that reframing it as that can be really helpful for anybody who thinks like, "Oh, I'm a spender," in quotes, not a saver. Yeah, you can save to spend that money because eventually you will. You will
mhm.
spend that money.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And so for me, I have this kind of budget framework where it's like you're paying your past self, your future self, and your current self. And that's how I think about where my buckets of money are going. So again, like you said, we're going to be spending that money eventually one day. It's just, am I spending it on my past self, which means I'm paying off my debt, my
Right.
current self, which is things I'm paying for now, like my rent, my phone bill, etc. And then my future self, which would be like, in retirement or my vacation in 5 years or anything like that. So that's how I like to think of it. And I know you have talked a little bit about the investing gap. So even going beyond like just saving money, like where do you think women should start with investing money?
If you have a retirement account through work, please take advantage of it, especially if you get some sort of employer match. That is free money. That is the only place in the world that's guaranteed to double your money. So if you get an employer match, please do take advantage of it. And if you don't know if your employer has an employer match, ask. That happens to me all the time. I'll have people slide in my DMs and they're like, I don't know if my job matches. And I was like, there's people you can ask, whether that's your boss or your HR coordinator or somebody at the company. Ask. If you don't have a 401k through work, or maybe you're maxing out your 401k through work, which would be phenomenal, you can open up what's called a IRA, which is an individual retirement account. There's two kinds. I explain this more on my Instagram, so I don't have to go into it a ton, but it's a traditional or a Roth IRA, and that's a retirement account that's tied to you as an individual, not to you at a corporation. So you kind of get to call the shots with that one. If you're self-employed, you have a couple different options. You have a solo 401k or a SEP IRA, which is similar to the individual IRA component, but it's for self-employed business owners. Or if you have a side hustle, and that's one of the things that I was able to invest in, and that's why I was able to hit $100,000 saved slash invested by 25, is that I had, when I did have a 401k through work, I took advantage of that. I had an IRA, and then I also had a SEP IRA because I had a profitable side hustle. So there's a lot of what we call tax advantage retirement accounts you can take advantage of. The tax advantage just means that the government's basically incentivizing you to save for retirement by giving you some tax breaks if you put some money in these accounts.
Yeah, so speaking of side hustles, you currently have a course open on side hustles, and you've talked like a little bit just now about like why it's so important for women to have a side hustle.
Yeah.
So, like what really motivated you to start this course? And I'm pretty sure it'll be closed by the time this is up, but do you know when you'll open it back up or anything like that? Anything you can share with us?
I'm not sure when I'll open it back up again, but it'll definitely be at some point soon, probably in the next 3 to 6 months, I would think. Yeah, so I started her first 100K as a side hustle. So the business that I now run full time and have for about the last half of a year is something that I grew, on the side of my 9 to 5 job in marketing for 3 years. And just the financial side of a side hustle is absolutely amazing. The ability to have another source of income um, to help you save more money or to help you pay off debt, to help you build your financial goals. And then the best thing you can do with a side hustle is it's really there as a secondary source of income should you lose your primary source of income. So we're currently now in a recession. I think they deemed it a recession officially a couple weeks ago. And so if you do lose your job or your hours get cut, or if you already are not working right now, having a secondary source of income, having a backup source of income can be really helpful and just give you a better peace of mind. But yeah, we cover all of that in the side hustle course, especially for people who are just getting started, because that's the number one thing I hear. They're like, I want a side hustle, but I have no idea what to do, or I have no idea how to get started. So we literally build your side hustle from the ground up. So asking you questions around how much time do you have? What's your personality like? What skills do you have or want to develop? All the way through how to pay taxes, how to optimize your side hustle earnings so that they're going to, the financial goals that you want them to go to, how to pitch clients, how to balance and manage your time with your 9 to 5. So we cover all of that. And it's all of the things I wish I knew when I had started my side hustle 3 years ago, and kind of all of the missteps I took and the answers to those. So it's the course I wish I had taken when I had first gotten started.
Yeah, I love that that's like really come full circle and you're able to put that back together. Because like now that you've gone full time with your business, I think it was back in November or December, you
Yeah.
came over and we went on a walk and we talked about this. And I know you were talking to a lot of people then about whether you could go full time with your business and like what you thought. And I was like, go for it.
You
I think you
were,
can do it.
and I loved
Yeah.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was affirming to hear from you, especially who, you've grown your business to, just amazing success. And yeah, it was an interesting time where I was trying to figure out, yeah, I think I knew the entire time I was going to be fine. It's just your own fear of making that leap, especially with like, how do I afford health insurance, right? How do I do that? How do I, you know, you're solely dependent on yourself when you're your own business owner, which is in many ways freeing, but also in many ways very terrifying. So, looking back, it was 100% the right decision. My first full month of entrepreneurship, I made 5 times the amount of money I would have made at my 9 to 5, and so yeah, definitely the right call for me.
Yeah, so for me, Gen 20 was never a side hustle for me. I always intended for it to be my full-time business, and
Right.
my household is a dual income household, and my husband has a very stable job, which I think really helped me lean fully into my business because when we first met back in 2017, I don't know what my revenue was that year. I don't remember, but I remember that I was so close to being able to be like, this is my like I can fully pay for all of our expenses with my business. But last year was my first year I hit over 100K in revenue,
Hell yeah.
which yeah, that was really big. And I think I'm pretty sure this year I'm on track. I got to go check. I don't This year has been so weird. I'm just,
So weird.
floating through different things and like I just launched a new website and I've been just working on different projects and stuff. So I'm really just focusing more on those things. But I also have a little side hustle of my own. I'm really into like reselling things, which I think is so much fun. I love it. Like I just started cuz we were moving recently. So I was like, "Oh, why don't I just try to sell things
The
from
art of
around my
resale.
house?"
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, it's crazy. People will just buy pretty much everything you have. And so that's even like a small side hustle for me because it's like, I mean, low maintenance. I don't even have to go source inventory. I already have it.
Right. Well, and I was literally thinking today, because I'm constantly thinking, and this is at my own detriment sometimes, of like, how can I further monetize my life? Which is something that I'm trying to get better at, like actually having hobbies. But I'm completely plant obsessed. Now I have like 30 plant babies in my house, and my mom just bought me like 4 more pots, so it's serious. But what I realized, like walking to my mailbox today, was like people sell propagations on Etsy. They, sell little cuttings of plants, and then they grow into larger plants, and like I could do
Hmm.
that, right? So it doesn't have to be I'm going to invent something or I'm going to grow this huge, global $1 billion business. It can be just, something that you either enjoy or something that you're looking to get better at, and maybe that brings in, a couple $100 a month. Like that's a great side hustle.
Hmm.
So yeah, there's so many different options for people, and that's part of the reason why I built the course is I want people to feel inspired and feel like they can get started, and they have a path to do that.
That even just bringing in a couple hundred extra dollars a month, like, I mean, yes, that's money you could put towards your bills, but it's also money you can put right into savings and your
Right.
investments and stuff
That's
like that.
that's why I hit my 100K as quickly as I did. Was I made, oh gosh, the first year side hustling, I think I made on one contract, a social media contract, I made like 12K after taxes. And so that
Hmm.
immediately went into my investment account or my SEP IRA or to a savings account. And yeah, that was a huge bolster to my savings.
Yeah, and I definitely you touched on this a little bit earlier, but I think one big thing is that people feel like improving their relationship with money has to be hard and there's like some
Right.
kind of resistance there and it really does not have to be that difficult,
No,
you
I
know.
call it the ostrich effect, which is you bury
Mhm.
your head in the sand and you act like your problems don't exist. And that happens with our relationship with money, right? I mean, this is in pop culture all the time. The episode of New Girl where Nick puts all of his bills in a box and shoves it in the closet, or Andy from Parks and Rec puts all of his bills in the freezer, right? So it's not a new concept, but I think that we have to get comfortable being uncomfortable, and eventually you'll get to the point where you do have a great relationship with money. But just like any relationship with anything or anyone, you have to work at it, right? You have to invest in it. And so, burying your head in the sand and ignoring, your spending habits or your lack of optimization when it comes to money are all things that ultimately, yeah, are maybe uncomfortable to start, but they're going to be way worse engage with them as soon as you can. So, yeah, there's a whole community, you and I both on our platforms, of course, talking about money, and so there's resources out there, and there's other people who are doing this, so you don't have to feel alone. You don't have to feel like, this is a journey that only you have to walk. You can have other people help you, stay on track, keep motivated, all of these things. And so, yeah, there was I hosted a money party last night I did like a money party webinar, and the hashtag started trending in the chat, hashtag no ostrich, and that's what I love. So that's my hashtag for the rest of 2020 is hashtag no ostrich.
Oh, I love it so much. Yeah, I read something recently that said instead of like I can't remember where I read it. It might have been a book. If I can remember, we'll link it in the show notes. But it was basically like saying that you shouldn't face your bills with like a sense of dread, but a sense of gratitude
Right.
because these, like, they're helping you in your life, the services that you're paying for. And I mean, money, it's like, it can be a sensitive topic, but that's like the whole point of this is to overcome that. But I mean, negotiating your pay, getting a higher paying job, having multiple streams of income. They're all ways to help you not only afford what you need in the present, but also what you need in the future. And
Right.
I think, yeah, just looking at your bills with like knowing that, I'm grateful that I can pay for my place to live and things like that.
Yeah, and there's a certain amount of privilege with that statement, of course, of like,
Mhm.
you and I largely can afford to pay our bills, and we have a backup emergency fund if we can't. And so, for people out there who do look at their bills and go, how am I going to pay for this? Um, know that like it gets better. There's people out there who can offer resources to you, as well as you're not alone. I think there's so much focus in the personal finance community on like what people have done wrong or what people didn't do to get themselves in a certain situation. And then I think, of course, part of people's financial situation is the choices they've made, but I think a bigger problem is the systemic issues, and that's what I try to
Mhm.
focus my platform on. Is it's not just did you buy things you didn't need, or did you overspend on your credit card to buy, again, random things that weren't beneficial to your life. But in addition, we have $1 trillion student debt crisis, and we have wage gaps, and with this again resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement, like there is so much wealth inequality when it just comes to the net worth of a Black family compared to a white family. And so I think that those are the conversations we need to be having as well, is not just like how to better your personal finances, but also how do we change the system that we're in, that was either built broken or is eventually become broken. And so those are the conversations I try to focus on. Is it's not just how to better your personal finances or how to save money, it's also how do we improve the very system that we operate in.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really important distinction. And especially like on that particular topic, how do you think we can all be financially, like financial allies for BIPOC and, women in general and things like that? Like what can we do in our daily lives to be better allies?
Yeah. I mean, as a white woman, I would say that I don't necessarily know, and I'm figuring it out too. So the first thing I can say is that consume and ask that question of, the Black community. Make sure that you're getting your information about how to show up from the communities that this affects. So I have a bunch of resources in my Instagram highlights, but you can also do a quick search. But if you're not consuming financial media or any media that is, you know, created by a Black woman, created by the Black community, then that's the first place to start. Is make sure you're diversifying your feed, make sure you're diversifying your information. The second thing is to use your dollars, vote with your dollars. So support either Black owned businesses or businesses that do like actionably support the Black Lives Matter movement. Um, and then the third is, I mean, I'm doing this right now. I think there's so much education that needs to happen. And I thought I knew a lot before, and I'm learning even more now about, like I said, the wealth gaps or the Freedman Savings Bank or Black Wall Street and all of these big financial crises and massacres that have occurred, to decimate the Black community's wealth. And so yeah, support creators by following them, support them with your dollars, and then educate yourself. And this is a journey that I'm on right now, and we're all on, of trying to figure out how to not just be not racist, but to be anti-racist.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you and trying to do all those things. What about you, Marina?
Hey guys. I've just been along for the ride. I swear I'm here. Yeah, so I've just been taking it all in. I'm a huge fan of Tori's and just excited to be interviewing you and listening live. But I'm a big proponent of educating. I think it all starts with learning. So whether you want to better your own experience or be a better ally for others, like we have to figure out what we know, what we don't know, and also what we have learned incorrectly. So, like for a historical purpose, I'll bring up this I just learned the other day. George Washington had fake teeth, and we've all been told they're made out of wood. And I distinctly remember as a kid thinking about like, well, what if you get splinters on your tongue? And it turns out that that's just a myth, and his dentures were made out of like human or animal teeth. And if they were human teeth, they were not.
They came from enslaved people.
They
Yeah.
came from enslaved people, and whether or not these people were paid for their teeth, they were most likely not voluntarily giving them up. And just thinking about that as we ask ourselves these questions, and our financial talk took a turn, but it's important to add that distinction of every
Mhm.
like education and money are two things that surround every aspect of our lives, no matter if we are artists or writers or working in an office, or if you're just walking down the street thinking about buying plants, like, which I'm always thinking about buying plants. But
Yep.
you want to, I think we want to kind of dig deep and start small and support, like, perfect way to do this, support your local community, support your local shops, spread out. If you want to buy something from a bigger company, do your research, figure out what is my money doing if I buy from company X versus company Y. And I think at the end of the day, it's all about like mindset. And if we change our mindsets, we can have better relationships with money and be better allies
Yeah.
for everyone.
And there's something that I've been thinking a lot too, because I don't want to just show up for this movement for 3 weeks and then peace out. Because that's probably more harmful than good, right? To have a
Mhm.
bunch of people who are suddenly like, "Oh, this is an issue, this is a problem," and then post about it or donate once or have one hard conversation or protest once and then be like, "Okay, I did my job as an ally," and I am setting up systems for myself personally as well as my business to make sure that this is a sustained effort,
Mhm.
because this is a marathon, not a sprint. This is a movement, not a moment. And so I'm trying to be really, really conscious as a white woman of not just showing up right now or showing up when these conversations are happening actively, and instead trying to figure out, how do I continue to provide education for the Black community and for the BIPOC community? How do I, again, support support businesses with my dollars for, the rest of my life? So I think that's a really important thing that I've been thinking a lot about is this can't just be, for a couple weeks.
And I think going back to what you said early on in our interview, Tori, talking about money is matters. Like when I was in a job where I wasn't paid very well, didn't have a great time. That's a story for another day, but I wasn't paid very well. And then I was talking to a former coworker, and it just came out like, I don't know why, but he randomly told me what he was paid. And I remember thinking, oh, dang, that's $10 more than me. And my position is like technically higher than yours.
Right.
Why didn't I know this? And I wasn't at that time in a place where I felt like I could stand up for myself or ask for more. And I think there's a huge fear around money. And if we can change our mindsets to acknowledge that we need more and we deserve better, and it's okay to talk about these things without being gauche is the perfect word for
Right.
it. It's, it's the only way we can lift each other up is if we all have this information and can say, oh, actually, this is an astronomical wage gap and that's not right.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to accept that you stand I'm not going to stand for this while my coworkers make less than me in the same job or make more than me in the same job kind of things.
Yeah. And I love that. And I think it also pairs with not just giving women, again, the education around how to ask for a raise, how to negotiate their pay, but also, how do we demand better of the companies that we work for? How do we make sure that this, we're not putting all of the weight on women or on marginalized groups to have to ask to be, compensated fairly or to be given fair opportunity. We have to demand better of the companies and the education system and make sure that these opportunities are available, not just training women to ask for them.
It's slow change. The kind of change that really sticks is the kind you do incrementally. So, if we do one big, huge thing, that's not going to be as impactful as if we just slowly but steadily and surely make these big changes, whether it's getting more comfortable with our own financial knowledge or getting more comfortable with learning to budget. Like, you can't do it all in one day, but you
No.
just have to stick at it.
You'll also burn out if you try to do it on all one day. Like you're going to, it's not going to be a fun time, right? To try to, it's going to be overwhelming and you're not going to be able to stick with it because you're going to hate it. I don't want you to hate it. So yeah, I love that point of like, this is slow change. It's again, marathon, not a sprint in every aspect of your life. If you want change to happen, whether that's, a fight for racial equality or your relationship with money, these things take consistent effort.
And we're showing up for all of it.
Yeah. So on that note, Tori, can you tell us a little bit more about all the resources that you've created on your website and on your Instagram and where exactly we can find you?
Yeah, I like to say I'm way cooler on Instagram. So if you want to hear me talk about money as well as my love of fried chicken and Timothée Chalamet, HerFirst100K at HerFirst100K on all of the social platforms, and then HerFirst100K.com, HerFirst100K.com. And yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of free resources on my Instagram. I also have workshops. I do coaching. I have resume and cover letter templates. I also have a couple different courses. And so, yeah, come see me, slide my DMs, say hi.
And she also has a very happy and helpful Facebook community that I'm a part of and love to learn from others. So definitely check that out too.
Yeah, the 100K Club is my Facebook community. So feel free to come say hi in there too.
Yeah, we'll leave all of that linked down in the show notes. So thank you so much for joining us today, Tori. This was a really powerful conversation.
Thank you so much. I love both of you and thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
This has been another episode of the Gen 20 podcast. We hope you liked it and we'll see you next time. If you have any topics you'd like us to discuss, let us know on Instagram. And if you have a minute, we'd love for you to rate and review.